Okay, got it. So the 4 albums we're looking at today, they've already cleared one hurdle. They won their round 1 groups, or at least came second, right? We've got Audioslave's Out of Exile. That's a powerhouse. Then Stan Bush and Barrage, the self-titled album, melodic rock punch there. Aerosmith's 9 Lives, kind of sprawling, big rock. And rounding it out, Dire Straits with Communique. Comforting consistency, maybe.
Exactly. They've all proven they belong here. They survived those initial cuts. So now we're not comparing like a classic against something forgettable. We're comparing 4 genuinely strong contenders. And this is where the little things start to matter more, right? The production choices, how the tracks flow together, how the sound holds up listen after listen, that's what decides it now. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, getting to round 2, it really means something. These albums face different challenges in round 1, different genres, different eras. Let's maybe map out how they got here. Because knowing who they beat kind of sets the stage for this round. It tells us something about their strengths, maybe their weaknesses too.
Okay, good idea. Let's start with Stan Bush and Barrage, since they actually won this group we're looking at. Their path in round 1, group 92, it looked pretty dominant, actually. They took first place against a real mix. You had Blackfoot's Tomcattin, that's Southern rock, pretty gritty. Then Frankie goes to Hollywood's Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. Total different, complex synth pop, kind of epic. And Daniel Powter's self-titled album. More straightforward pop, maybe less memorable for some.
Mm-hmm.
So beating that variety, getting first place, it suggests Stan Bush had this broad appeal, something that kind of cut across genres.
Definitely. And then you look at Dire Straits with Communique. They also grabbed first place in their group, Group 57.
Mm-hmm.
And their competition was tough too, and quite varied. Keens, Under the Iron Sea, big atmospheric soundscapes. Foo Fighters, one by one, relentless, post-grunge power.
Yeah.
And Mike and the Mechanics wired that polished 80s rock sound. So for an album that gets called, laid back, maybe even their least good, and we'll definitely dig into that phrase later to come out on top against those, it says a lot about its consistency. It just doesn't seem to tire the listener out.
That's a really interesting point. Okay, Audioslave, Out of Exile. Their path seemed, very rock-focused. They won Group 112 first place, and look who they beat. 2 albums by the Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah, their big debuts.
Whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not, and Favorite Worst Nightmare. Huge indie rock buzz around those.
Right.
Plus Annie Lennox's Bear, which is more polished pop. So Audioslave just kind of muscled through with pure rock power there.
It was a clear demonstration of force, yeah.
Yeah.
Overcoming that indie hype and the established solo artist. Which then brings us to Aerosmith's 9 Lives. And this is where the context gets, a bit strange. Really insightful for you, the listener, actually.
Okay, yeah, this is the unique wrinkle, isn't it? Aerosmith's 9 Lives came out of Group 103, but the group itself was weird. All 4 albums in that group were Aerosmith albums.
Exactly. It was just push play, 9 Lives, draw the line, and done with mirrors. Just Aerosmith battling Aerosmith.
Yeah.
An internal playoff, essentially.
So what does that mean for how we judge it here?
Well, think about it. 9 Lives came in second in that group. So it was judged better than 2 other Aerosmith records done with mirrors from the mid-'80s and the older Draw the Line.
Oh.
Okay. But crucially, it was judged worse than just push play from the early 2000s.
Ah, okay. So it already had this internal verdict against it.
Precisely. Before it even faced off against Dire Straits or Audioslave or Stan Bush, it was already marked as, maybe not Aerosmith's top-tier stuff, even within their own catalog. That second-place finish within its own band's work suggests a kind of vulnerability that the other 3 albums, the ones that won their groups outright, just didn't have coming into this round.
Gotcha. Okay, that sets the stage really well. So we know how they got here. Let's dig into the music itself now. We should probably start with the 2 albums that didn't make it through this round, the ones that got eliminated in this album quest. Let's begin with Aerosmith's 9 Lives. Came in 4th place here.
Right. 9 Lives. 12th studio album. And it really does try to capture that late 90s, big, slick Aerosmith sound. They threw everything at it, it feels like. You get the classic swagger. Yeah, the bluesy roots are still kind of there, but it's all wrapped in this very modern, booming production for the time. Lots of brass arrangements popping up. Joe Perry's guitar sound is really chunky, rhythmic.
Yeah, the reviewer points out some highlights. Track 2, Falling in Love, is hard on the knees. That's a monster, right? Bulky guitar, huge vocals, is typically cheeky Aerosmith lyrics. And other moments too, like Crash, described as a maddening drug song, or The Farm, which apparently has nods to the Beatles and was inspired by The Wizard of Oz. That's unexpected.
Yeah, there are definitely moments. But the core critique, the reason it likely landed in 4th in this specific format, comes down to 2 words the reviewer used: cluttered and lacking polish.
Hmm.
We need to unpack cluttered, though. In '97, big-budget rock often meant, well, more IS, more. The album's long, over an hour.
Okay.
And that length, plus maybe some heavy-handed mastering, lots of extra instruments layered on those brass sections, keep coming back. It just makes it a bit exhausting when you have to listen multiple times back to back.
Wait, hang on. Is clutter always bad? Isn't that just like diversity? Aerosmith does ballads, they do rockers, they experiment, horns, different styles. Isn't that ambition, not clutter? Why punish that?
That's a fair challenge. It's about context, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
In this album quest format, that ambition can become clutter if it's not executed perfectly, or if it lacks a certain focus,
Yeah.
especially when you're directly comparing it back to back with 3 other albums. Here, the ambition might have led to an album that feels less like one cohesive journey and more like a collection of really big, heavily produced ideas.
Okay, I see.
Track 1 is Stadium Rock, track 4 is Moody, track 7 has the horns blaring again. That lack of a consistent sonic thread, plus the length, it just works against your endurance as a listener in this specific test. So, clutter in this competitive format really seems to be the enemy of staying power.
Yeah.
The album couldn't quite find that consistent groove, maybe,
Yeah.
and that led to a pretty clear 4th place finish.
Makes sense in that context. Okay, let's move to 3rd place then. The album that almost made it, Audioslave's Out of Exile. This one feels like the opposite problem, maybe. Pure, focused, muscular intensity.
Yeah.
You got that amazing rhythm section from Rage Against the Machine, Comerford, and Wilf just locked in, powerful, kind of lumbering, but in a good way. And then Chris Cornell's voice over the top. Just incredible. Soaring, powerful.
Oh, undeniably. It's premium hard rock quality. Tracks like Be Yourself, Drown Me Slowly, Man or Animal, #10. These are just huge rock songs. They hit hard. It's that perfect blend, isn't it? The rhythmic precision of Rage, the melodic force, and yeah, that sheer vocal power of Cornell from Soundgarden. It's a known, very potent combination.
Yet, it finished 3rd. And the reviewer even suggests this might be Audioslave's best ever effort. So why didn't it advance? The critique mentioned it followed an invariant path of Led Zeppelin Esquire rock and was less easy on the ears over time. What does invariant path mean here?
That's the key phrase, I think. Invariant path. While Cornell is delivering these amazing vocal melodies, the musical foundation, that powerhouse rhythm section, it's relentless. It's incredibly tight, incredibly powerful, but also maybe a bit predictable in its intensity. Tom Morello throws in his unique guitar sounds, those whines and effects, but it's mostly within that very solid, very driving rhythmic structure. The album hits a certain level of intensity, a certain volume, and kind of just stays there, which is brilliant, but maybe lacks dynamic variation.
So in this specific album quest setup, that constant high energy actually turns into a negative. It becomes sonic fatigue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're listening to 4 albums back to back, 3-4 times over, the one that just keeps hammering you with the same level of intense muscular sound, without many breaks or shifts in dynamics, loud verse, loud chorus, loud bridge, loud solo, it's probably going to wear you down faster.
Right.
Faster than an album that maybe gives you more room to breathe, more quiet moments, more contrast. Out of Exile is fantastic, no question. But its sheer, non-stop power might have been its undoing in a contest that seems to value endurance. And that's why it couldn't quite overcome the album that seemed to prioritize comfort, Dire Straits.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about Dire Straits' Communique. This is the album that qualified 2nd, knocking out Audioslave. And it's a fascinating case, isn't it? It's their 2nd album, and the reviewer calls it possibly their most laid back, even more so than their leaker stuff, which could still rock out sometime.
Yeah, the reviewer nails this central paradox, this conflict. It's described as arguably their weakest effort, or maybe a fair way to put it, their least good. Because the reviewer insists Dire Straits never actually made a bad record.
Right.
And yet, this supposedly least good album takes out Audioslave's potential best ever effort.
That's wild.
It really is. And it's maybe the strongest evidence that this album quest, this specific listening method, really puts a premium on listenability and consistency over just raw peak power.
So how does it achieve that comfort? It's described as being like a comfortable old pair of slippers. That sounds nice, but musically what's going on? Comfort doesn't just happen by accident, does it?
No, absolutely not. It's very much in the production choices, I think. Mark Knopfler produced it with Jerry Wexler, and it's all about space and clean tones. Knopfler's famous for his finger-picking guitar style, right? That inherently creates a softer attack than using a pick.
Ah.
The notes ring out clearly, but without that aggressive edge, that high-end snap that can sometimes lead to listening fatigue over time.
Ah, so it's built into the very sound of the guitar, clarity and sustain over aggression.
Exactly. The whole sound just shines through. It's clean, never muddy, never feels cluttered. Think about the contrast with Nine Lives, that big, sometimes messy, brass-heavy sound.
Yeah.
Or contrast it with Out of Exile, that constant, powerful sonic assault. Communique is just soothing. The sounds themselves are engineered to be gentler on the ear. And the themes kind of fit that, too. A lot of the songs are apparently drawn from Knopfler's time as a journalist. Observational, reflective lyrics. Calming narratives, almost.
Yeah, tracks like Lady Writer or the opener Once Upon a Time in the West, they definitely have that quality. They're great songs, but they don't demand your attention constantly. They just provide this really pleasant, consistent background. Like the reviewer joked, maybe it gives us nothing to communicate home about, playing on the title. But that sheer, easy, non-fatiguing quality is what got it through. It's like a masterclass in reliable, well, maybe not mediocrity, but reliable excellence. Consistent quality.
Consistent quality is a good way to put it. It just endures the repeated listens better than the albums that try to do too much or try to hit too hard constantly.
Okay, so that covers the albums that placed 4th, 3rd, and 2nd, which leaves the winner, the dark horse maybe, Stanbush and Barrage.
Right. The album that took clear first place in this group beat the consistency of Dire Straits, beat the power of Audioslave, and the story here is just, it's a fascinating mix. High-quality music meeting this incredibly powerful emotional trigger.
Yeah, you can't talk about this album's success, especially for this reviewer, without talking about the 80s nostalgia factor. It's unavoidable. He specifically mentions being, what, a 7-year-old boy when the Transformers cartoon hit? And how it just changed everything, made other cartoons seem obsolete, robots turning into trucks and jets and guns. It was mind-blowing for a kid then.
Oh, totally. A cultural phenomenon.
And the peak of that, for the reviewer, was the 1986 animated movie. That specific scene, Optimus Prime transforming, just mowing down Decepticons.
The big battle.
Leading up to that huge fight with Megatron, one shall stand, one shall fall. So epic.
And the soundtrack to that moment.
With Stan Bush's The Touch, probably the defining piece of anthemic melodic rock from that entire decade, right?
It really is iconic.
And the reviewer recalls this specific musical moment in the track that just crystallizes its power for him, where the instruments drop out for a second.
Yeah, the dramatic pause.
Leaving just the synth and Stan Bush hitting that massive high note. You got the touch, you got the power.
Goosebumps moment, even just thinking about it.
Right, and he says, at that point, the needle just broke through the top of the awesome scale. That kind of emotional connection tied to such a core childhood memory, that gives the album a huge advantage going in.
It absolutely does. But here's the critical thing, especially for this album quest format. If it was just nostalgia, just that one massive hit, it would have probably failed the back-to-back listening test. One great song doesn't make a great album for repeated listens. But the reviewer makes it clear Stan Bush and Barrage is not a one-track wonder. He got the vinyl years later and confirmed, the whole album actually holds up. It's genuinely good music.
Okay, let's talk about that musical quality then, because the notes praise the guitar work specifically. Sensational shredding, bordering on virtuoso. And interestingly, Stan Bush himself played lead guitar on this album, which he apparently didn't do much later on, sticking more to rhythm. What's the significance of the singer playing his own leads here?
Well, sometimes when the main songwriter and vocalist steps up to play lead, the focus can shift slightly. It might be less about pure technical flash, though the reviewer says the playing is virtuosic here, and maybe more about serving the song's melody, the emotional core. The lead lines become really integrated into the song structure itself. They're not just tacked on, they feel like part of the composition. It's still shredding, but maybe with more melodic intent, supporting the overall feeling. The reviewer even uses the phrase serious zen when talking about the solos on tracks like Temptation and Primitive Lover.
Temptation and Primitive Lover cited as awesome tracks. What makes them stand out musically? Is it just good 80s AOR or something more?
They seem to strike that perfect balance for the genre. The production is clean, powerful, but it lets the actual songwriting, the chord changes, the melodies really come through. It's not just about volume. And crucially, unlike maybe Out of Exile, this album seems to have more dynamic range. It's not all full throttle all the time. Although, fairness, the reviewer does mention one track, Heart V's Head, kind of dips in quality. Suffers from too much repetition at the end.
Okay, so not perfect, but mostly strong.
Right. But the album recovers. And it even has these nice subtle touches like a beautifully dirty bass hook from Stand on Gates of Paradise or a soulful end track with What Is Love. It suggests an album that, has that huge nostalgic hit, but also delivers focused, dynamic, well-crafted melodic rock pretty much all the way through.
So it paired the emotional knockout punch of the touch with actual sustained musical quality.
Exactly. The overall verdict was simple. A brilliant album. It didn't just win because of Transformers nostalgia. It won because it was a genuinely great melodic rock album. And it had that massive emotional connection as, like, the ultimate tiebreaker. It earned that #1 spot fair and square in this group, advancing convincingly.
Okay, so that brings us to the final verdict for round 2, Group 11. The results are in, and yeah, the title we use nails it. Audioslave got exiled by Dire Straits, and Aerosmith ran out of lives against Stan Bush's Barrage.
So let's just lock in those final rankings again, based on this whole rigorous back-to-back listening process of the album quest. #1, Stan Bush and Barrage, self-titled. #2, Dire Straits, Communique. #3, Audioslave, Out of Exile. And #4, Aerosmith, 9 Lives.
And I think the biggest takeaway, the thing that's maybe most surprising or instructive for you listening, is that upset. Audioslave's potential best ever effort, powerful, acclaimed hard rock getting knocked out by Dire Straits' supposed least good album, that really challenges assumptions about what makes an album win in this kind of endurance test.
It absolutely does. It forces us to conclude that this specific album quest format, well, it favors endurance. It favors listener comfort over sheer peak intensity or complexity, perhaps. 9 Lives seemed to fail because it was too much, too cluttered. That late 90s excess just became exhausting over repeated plays. Out of Exile, maybe it failed because it was too invariant. That constant high level of power, while impressive, led to fatigue. No dynamics. And Communique succeeded precisely because it was built for comfort. Clean sounds, space, consistency. It didn't wear you out. That was its superpower in this format.
And Stan Bush proves that if you combine genuine musical quality, dynamic, melodic, well-played rock with that kind of lightning in a bottle emotional connection, that's an almost unbeatable formula. The music was strong enough on its own, but the Transformers nostalgia pushed it over the top into dominant victory territory.
Yeah. Consistency and that emotional resonance, they beat out raw power and cluttered ambition in this round. The process worked as designed, maybe. It filtered out the albums that had weaknesses exposed by repeated listening, and it rewarded the ones that just held up, top to bottom.
So, okay, wrapping this up. What does this specific album quest battle mean for us, for you as a listener? We went through Aerosmith's big, maybe overstuffed rock, Dire Straits' smooth, comfortable consistency, Audioslave's focus, but maybe tiring power, and landed on Stan Bush, the melodic rock champ fueled by nostalgia that broke the awesome scale. I guess it shows that judging music, especially trying to find the best, isn't just about technical skill or how loud the guitars are. It's really subjective, isn't it? It depends on comfort, on context, like being a 7-year-old watching Optimus Prime and just how well something holds up after you've lived with it. Listen to it again and again. Enduring listenability seems key.